You're listening to The Edge, everything bass fishing, coming to you worldwide from MegaWare Keelguard Studios.
What is going on, Bass Nation, Bass Edge Nation? That is, man, excited to be here for the October 1 episode, man. It's, just last episode we were talking about how, man, bass fishing's been a little bit slow. There wasn't a whole lot of tournaments going on, and holy cow, can a couple weeks make a huge difference, man. It's been no holds barred. So we got a lot to run down right here on episode 409 of Bass Edge Radio. As always, Bass Edge in partnership with MegaWare Keelguard, obviously providing your boat with keel protection from grinding salt, abrasive rocks, concrete boat ramps. Don't be without a keel guard on your boat, and be sure to go to keelguard.com after this episode of Bass Edge Radio. Check out all of their other accessories that you need to get on your boat, like the Flex Step, Scuff Buster, Skeg Guard, Battery Guard, just a whole myriad of things that would be great additions to your rig. Man, let's kick it off. Here we go, man. It's recently we had two Bassmaster Opens over this last couple weeks. At the end, we had the first Watts Bar event. Super tough, but man, that it didn't put out big weight, but it put out consistent fish. So that was great. This Watts Bar in Eastern Tennessee, and then we also had Kyle Patrick taking the W there at Lake of the Ozarks in Missouri. Another fantastic event, man. As I mentioned before, I think most folks were pretty surprised at the weights at Watts Bar. Tyler won the event with a bit over 41 pounds, man. That's just about 14 pounds per day, a little bit higher than I think most people were expecting. Tyler focused out there on that fall ledge bite with a football jig. Really, that's kind of a late summer bite, really targeting those fish that really haven't made that fall transition yet. But there was a lot of folks in the top 10 that really started to rely on those top water bites and more in that fall movement of bass, which we're going to get into obviously right here on this episode. Always trying to bring you to education, and we're going to get into fall fishing, of course. As I mentioned, some of the other anglers, we had some grass fishing going on, some bluff fishing going on, shallow, wood. It was really all over the place. So it was a great event to watch, and really, really interesting. At Lake of the Ozarks in that next Bassmaster Open EQ event, man, it was a brush, docks, and river deal, no doubt. Primary targets for angler consistently bringing in the better sacks of fish were in those zones. It's, Kyle Patrick, an angler from New York, won the event. He concentrated more on the brush deal, drop shotting. That was one of his major players. So it's exciting. We're going to actually talk to Kyle later on in this episode, kind of break down that fall win he had there on Lake of the Ozarks and kind of pick his brain on what kind of fall strategies he's looking for over these next couple months as we move into October and November. Kyle is actually currently in the top 9 also of the Angler of the Year standing in the Bassmaster EQ points. So we're going to talk to Kyle too about his overall success in that series and how he's able to bring kind of that New York flavor to all other parts of the country and be successful. Couple of series is the Ozarks. They're finishing up that last event of the tour series, so we're going to know those championship qualifiers from all 5 divisions taking place there at Table Rock that first week of November. Man, that Potomac River event that just went down last week, I was able to be a part of that. I actually had a pretty good finish there, I was happy to say. I finished up 15th there, but the winner took it all was Christian Greco. Christian from Florida, man, he has now 3 wins punching grass, what do you expect from a guy fishing in Florida? Man, he had some great weights for fall fishing, especially on a river system. Um, he had just about 34 pounds of fish, so almost a 17-pound average. So pretty daggum impressive and pretty solid on that Potomac River fishery. Giving you a little bit of breakdown of the way I fished. Man, I had two things going on. I had a winding bait deal going on over top of some grass and on the edge of some grass. Then I had a punch and bite that I had started to develop. If you notice in the standings, I increased my weight from day 1 to day 2, and that was because I was able to get a limit real early on day 2 and focus more on that punch and bite, which seemed like to be, for whatever reason, just the bigger fish were caught punching grass. I see that a lot also down at Lake Amistad, and that's often a fall pattern where you can get some bigger fish that are still buckled into that cover that haven't quite come out to play, as you might say, yet in that fall feeding mode. So a tip there for everybody. But man, that was a great event. I had 24 and a half pounds for 2 days, so I wouldn't say it was pedestrian. Like I said, I finished 15th and was happy to be there. So make sure you watch that last event going on today, Lake of the Ozarks, that Toyota Series event. That's going to be fun to see how that whole thing wraps up. Man, in today's show, we've got a cool showcase segment coming up. We've kind of been away from that showcase segment for quite a while, but a big Texas team event championship, the Brandon Belt Show Series, went down in South Texas, close to my homestead, and I had a friend of mine, Travis Burns, and he was part of the winning team. He's actually a guide down at Choke Canyon. We're going to talk a little bit about that, but he was able to qualify for that championship on his home lake, take home a huge prize. We're going to get Travis on the line here. We're going to talk to him, see how he put together a fall pattern. So it's going to be fun to hear from Travis and what's going on there. Finally, I hope everyone enjoyed our last episode, episode 408. That was a September 15 episode with Bassmaster Angler of the Year, Kyle Welcher. Kyle was just a fantastic episode. I encourage you guys, if you haven't seen, and ladies, to go back, check out that episode. It is a lot of fun. But man, Bass Edge, you can tell in the attire, rolling into the fall. We got some sweatshirts on now instead of some short sleeve shirts. But we're rolling into fall. We're still near the shores of the Potomac River down here in Virginia. And man, this is my birthday. It's a great place to be from. But I'm looking forward to getting back to Texas here in November. Y'all stay tuned. We're going to have the Brandon Belt $100,000 champion on the show right after this short break. We'll be right back. See ya.
You know the importance of protecting your investments, so choose the protection the pros pick. Grinding sand, abrasive rocks, and concrete ramps are no match for our patented technology. The MegaWare Keel Guard is made tough and made to stick. Install it yourself in less than an hour, providing the most dependable, most trusted protection for your boat, guaranteed for life. Insist on the original Keel Guard the pros have picked for 25 years. MegaWare Keel Guard.
Nitro, a rush of tournament adrenaline. Nitro, the choice of champion, where performance meets play. Nitro, a big water beast, a pure fishing machine. Nitro, release the champion within.
All right, here we go. Welcome back to Bass Edge Radio. All set for our showcase segment. Man, here he is. He's on the screen. The big Texas Trail Brandon Belt Show Series champion, Travis Burns. Welcome to Bass Edge Radio, my friend.
Hey, man. Thanks, Kurt. Appreciate it. Look forward to talking a little bit about it.
Heck yeah, man. We're going to dive into your win there on Choke Canyon Lake, talk fall fishing. We're going to talk about your patterns that you utilize, some patterns that you're going to be looking for here over the next several weeks to be successful out there in the fall world. But man, I got to say, if listeners have not seen this, go to BrandonBeltFishing.com. This is a Texas fishing series. It's a huge series. Travis has been involved with it the past year, and many anglers in the state of Texas. I think the tournament series has been around for about 2 or 3 years. But man,
Yeah.
big payouts. Bass Cat is affiliated with this tournament trail. Big deal going on in the state of Texas. Travis, this set up really well for you. You qualified for the championship on your home lake there in Choke Canyon. Tough time of year for a tournament. Early fall, really late summer.
Yeah, man, it was a cool tournament series, and man, more people need to fish this as far as the team tournaments go. My partner Kenny Witek, which without him it wouldn't have happened. He also guides there at Choke as well, and gosh dog man, we put a absolute ton of time on that water to try to win that championship. And it was one of them deals that home lake deal, it can get you, or it can be good for you, or it can definitely bite you in the butt. But man, we had quite a few different patterns that we knew we were going to be able to run because we had spent so much time on the lake and of course guiding. But I really did not think that this tournament was going to be won throwing top water 3 solid days. Every fish we caught, except for one giant key fish on the last day, came off top water. It was just a grass pattern, ran top water, ran a lot of community holes, but we know these community holes just replenish. They just the fish just, you catch one out of it and come back, and then there's more there. So we ran around the lake like madmen, just throwing spooks around, 6 cents catwalk to Strike King Sexy Dog, and put our head down and we grounded out. It wasn't as glorious as what it looked, I can promise you that.
About that real quick, you see that transition, start September in a lot of parts of the country, but when you start to see that transition in August, it starts to roll through to down south. What is it that you're looking for that's going to put this kind of topwater pattern together? What led you to start throwing a topwater? Did you see schooling fish? Was it bait, there on your graphs, or what kind of led you to this pattern that was so successful?
Kurt, as well as I know, Choke has been on a decline as far as water level goes, and
okay,
I really thought we were going to win this tournament offshore, and man, we were before cutoff date. I just went into the grass. What little bit was left, I went into the grass and just tons and tons of bait in there, and I started just throwing a topwater around and just catching giants, and knew that was going to be a player. There's bait everywhere right now. There's bait all the way out to 21 foot, and there's bait all the way up to a foot. But I don't know why, but these fish have just made a giant push to the bank. It was almost like fall set in, but I can't explain it. To the life of me, I can't understand why we didn't go offshore and able to crush those 25 to 35 pound bags like we normally do at Choke, but it just didn't happen. And then about halfway through the first day, we had 2 little line burners in the live well. We put topwaters in our hand. We went and ran everything we knew, and next thing you know, we got almost 28 pounds in the boat. And I was able to just make that decision that it wasn't going to happen offshore, and I had to do something. But I had this topwater deal in the back of my pocket the whole time. But I think after the second day, people seen what we were doing, and because you can't hide nothing at Choke anymore because it's so low. And I think a lot of people started doing that same thing we were doing. But what I think was our key was, it was just our cadence was like, it was a twitch, pause, and you could pause for 5 seconds, 2 seconds to 10 seconds. If you did a steady retrieve all the way back to the boat, you were not getting bit. And if you were getting bit, you're losing or missing most of them. But we just figured that little niche out, man, and we were able to run with that thing for 3 solid days.
Wow, man, that's amazing. What was it? Just the difficulty of not being able to catch the offshore fish the first part of the tournament that kind of threw you into this new mode of this topwater pattern that you kind of revealed on that last day of practice?
Well, yeah, it was funny. I had, from about the end of May to June and July, man, that offshore bite was just rocking. I mean,
Right.
just, it wasn't a deal where you pull up like it has been in the past where you're can catch 25 to 35 pounds. You pick a giant up here and there and a little one, and all of a sudden you catch a 10 pounder. But man, they were there and they were set up where we know they live. We just could not get them to bite, and everybody was kind of complaining that offshore bite was because these guys are so good, man. These guys from East Texas, they're so stinking good, and they're going to find everything. And everybody was just saying, my God, we cannot get one caught offshore. And I'm sure there were a few.
What do you think
offshore,
makes those areas that you find? Obviously, you have a lot of intimate knowledge of Choke Canyon. What do you think makes those areas that you find that tend to be productive over and over again, and they just become stops along the way? What usually do you see that makes something like an area like that so good?
God, that's hard to that's hard to say. It just why they're those main lake points with grass. If it's got a hard spot, a little rock on it, some hardwood, but I can't explain it. It's just community holes, and
Right.
we had that knowledge of knowing what community holes on that lake hold better fish.
Sure.
And that's what we concentrated on running. We probably rotated all the stuff up around the main lake. We hit it anywhere from 2 to 4 times a day. I mean, we had like 10, 15 stops, and it was just rotate it back and forth. I mean, we were running around like madmen. It was it was great. It was fun, but stressful as well because, of course, the old rule of thumb, throwing that top water out there, you can put the best hooks money can buy on. And, the second day, we weigh in almost 16 pounds, and disappointing as heck, we lose a 7-pounder in the net on camera, comes off in the net, tail walks right out of the net, hook pulls. We really, second day we should have weighed in 23, 24, and then the last day we weighed in 12 pounds with only 4 fish, and we should have weighed in 25. We lost so many dang fish on top water, but we could not.
Did you learn anything through that process of lost fish, of something, maybe you could have altered in the future, maybe a lighter rod, different line, smaller bait,
I go back, Yeah, I go back and forth. I did all that. I mean, I'd rotate a bigger type walking bait to a pop par, to a smaller walking bait, smaller hooks. I just, for the life of me, could not figure out.
Sometimes they get off.
We couldn't keep them pinned. It was the most frustrating. And we thought we gave it away the last day, to be honest with you, because we had them 2 boys from Lake Fork that are just hammers, and they got on some scoping fish. And we thought if anybody's going to catch us, because we had a 12-pound lead going in, we thought if anybody's going to catch us, them 2 boys going to catch us, because they very well could have wrecked it. They needed to catch, I think, a 27 or 29-pound bag. They very well could have done it, because we seen where they were at, and they were on a spot where just giants live. And we thought we gave it away, man. We really did. We thought, oh my God, we just gave away $100,000+, and come to find out, we got lucky enough and held on to the lead by 6 pounds and won it.
Yeah, it went great. I mean, obviously, the first day carried a lot, but you had to keep catching some throughout the event. Man, what do you think, for anglers as we kind of roll through this thing, fall fishing, South Texas, grass fishing lake, what do you think anglers need to concentrate on these next several weeks? We're here October 1, going into mid-October, you're going to start to see those water temperatures cool down. What do you think is going to help anglers be successful over these next 2 or 3 weeks to catch fish in an environment like that?
Man, there's definitely, even though we're still hot here, these fish know things are happening. They know, the days are getting a little bit shorter. Um, Running those backup pockets, looking for good grass. And my deal, the key to choke, in my opinion, is finding that good grass with clear water.
Okay.
Grass everywhere on the lake, but you can still catch them up in that muddy type stuff up the river. But man, go to the back of these pockets and just start running that grass. Look for bait. They're moving back, and I think it's going on pretty much everywhere. I mean, kind of sounding like these fish are already starting to make a little transition, even though we haven't really cooled off a whole lot. But
Sure.
that's what I think people need to do, is just cover some water, man, and downsize. I think downsizing is key right now, because the bait they're feeding on in the grass is tiny, little bitty
Okay.
tiny threadfin shad and little bluegill and things like that. But still offshore, there's giant gizzards out there that they're feeding on as well. But I would definitely run that grass pattern and run the back of them pockets and just look for bait.
Right. So maybe when you talk about downsize, you talk about, instead of a 5 or 6 inch swim bait, maybe a 2 or 3 or 4 inch
2.5,
swim bait.
3 inch.
Okay.
Exactly. Just downsize your bait a little bit, match the hatch a little bit for sure. And I think you'll be fine.
For me, I generally find this time of year where I get, parallel with fish a lot. What I mean by that is I'm fishing, instead of fishing vertical type stuff, meaning like jigs, worms, something that's going
Agree. Yeah.
down, drop shots, things like that. I really think the fish get that shad buzz, and really they
Without a
get
doubt.
one train focus. What are some of those baits that you feel like are the right size that anglers could put on their deck and have some success with over the next couple weeks?
Man, those little small swim baits, with a little, whether it's a little flashy swimmer with I'm a big 6 cents guy since I'm backed
Okay.
by them. They're smaller swim baits, that Divine swim bait. Hey, I'm a big spinnerbait guy, old school spinnerbait, downsizing your spinner baits, downsizing the blades, little bitty small trailer on the back, small walking baits. Go to popping bait. Popar was a key player for us as well.
Right.
Um, small swim jigs, and they're in that mood to chase right now. I mean, they're moving up and they're ready to feed up for the winter, and they're definitely in that mood to chase. So I would say stay with those moving baits and downsizing. Try to match the hatch as much as you can.
Okay, that's great tips. Last question, for tournament anglers this time of year, you know, downsizing is a great way to get a limit. And you can catch big fish on downsized baits. But
Without a doubt.
there is a lot of pedestrian limits that come in the fall. And a lot of time anglers are just wondering, where's that big bite? What can an angler do in the fall once they secure a teener limit to try to get that 4, 5, 6, 7 pound bite that they need to put them over the top in a tournament situation?
Man, I kind of go back and forth on that. It's almost like, just, do you weed through those fish and keep trying to catch those smaller fish with smaller baits? But I do enjoy putting on a bigger bait, looking for that bigger bite, whether it's it's a 6 cent Magnum catwalk, or it's a big Magnum type fluke, or something big, bigger spinner bait with bigger blades on it. And then don't be afraid to throw the old glide bait a little bit around
There
as
you go.
well. I mean, they will definitely hammer that. And matter of fact, one of our key fish, the only fish we put in the live well, the last day, my partner Kenny, he's a glide bait master, man. And I sat back and let him do his work. And that's the only fish we really caught offshore. And he caught one almost 7 pounds to seal the deal for us
Wow.
I think he was throwing a shad, and just wrecked it. And I knew it was going to happen. I told the cameraman, I said, hey, start rolling, because there's seven giants in this tree. Get ready. And as soon as
That is
I
so
said that,
cool.
man, it was so cool. The cameraman got it all on. It's going to make for some good TV. I think that's going to come out. They sent me a message the other day. I think that's going to come out here in another month or so
Okay.
on the Pursuit channel or something
Very
like
cool.
that. But no, I couldn't have done it without my partner Kenny. There's no doubt about it, man. We spent
Well,
so much time on that lake.
Big congratulations, Travis, to you and Kenny, of course. So what was the total take, and what did you buy yet with the money you won? I mean, you all won a ton of money. You won 100,000
Yeah.
plus a boat. Is that right?
No, we didn't. The boat was a giveaway. The
Oh,
boat
the
was a
boat's a
giveaway.
giveaway. Okay.
Yeah, and they drew numbers on that, and we were boat 47 that qualified. And then when they drew the numbers, the guy went boat number 45, and I was like, oh my god, that would have been awesome.
But
No,
you got
so far,
$100,000 for the win, so you split it 50-50.
Yep.
What are you going to go buy with
50-50.
50 grand?
Man, I haven't bought anything, and actually, I think once it's said and done, once we get all of our money back, everything, I think we're going to be closer to 120 with everything,
cool.
with bonus money,
Sure.
Bass Cat money, Yamaha, all that,
Right.
Mercury, all that type of stuff. But man, I haven't, dude. I just stuck it in the bank and just gonna put it in a, put it in a little CD, and I haven't done anything with it, man. Just stashing it away.
Well, that is very cool. Well, Travis, I appreciate you being with us here on Bass Edge Radio, spreading the news about the BrandonBeltFishing.com tournament trail. One half of the championship team right here, Travis Burns and his buddy Kenny. So did you had something else to add there, Travis?
No, I was just going to tell people this was the first year for the team show series, and man, the payouts that he's doing is just unbelievable, and it's guaranteed payouts. I mean, it's amazing what Brandon's done, and he's putting his heart and soul into this, and it's a great trail, man. If you're a high-end team tournament fisherman, even if you're not, man, the payout, you got to fish against hammers. There's no doubt about it. But let me tell you what, the payouts are just amazing. Even cool. The qualifiers pay 50 grand to win a qualifier. It's pretty incredible.
Sounds like a fun team trail to be involved with, no doubt, there in the state of Texas. A lot of those tournaments in East Texas for 2024. I checked out the schedule. Y'all can check it out, too, at BrandonBeltFishing.com. Travis, dude, thank you so much. Congratulations on the big win. We're going to take a short break, but got to give a shout-out to Bass Pro Shops. As always, reminding everyone we all live downstream. Y'all stay tuned. We're going to be back with our feature angler spotlight, Kyle Patrick, right after this.
Plenty of sunshine.
Come on, man, let's roll. What the?
To catch the fish, you need to be one with the fish.
With PowerPole shallow water anchors, you'll get the ultimate in precision, power, and control, so you can catch more fish. No face paint or phony fins necessary.
Excessive shock and vibration are two leading causes for premature battery failure. Prolong the life of your batteries with the new MegaWare Battery Guard. The Battery Guard sits under your battery and absorbs excessive vibration and bounce, reducing G-shock by up to 80%. Great for boats or anywhere shock and vibration can damage a battery. The Battery Guard can easily be trimmed to fit virtually any custom shape or battery size. Save money by protecting your batteries. Spend more time on the water and less on maintenance. Find yours at megaware.com.
Yo, what's up, Bass Edge Nation? We are back, and as promised, he's on the screen right now. Your Bassmaster Opens Lake of the Ozarks champion, Kyle Patrick. What is up, dude? Congratulations on the big W.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it's pretty crazy, you know. Never thought that it would be there. Never thought. You know, like I talked about it a lot. Like, it's hard to, you know, when I go out, I'm like, I'm going to win. But, you know, you go with the intent of winning, but you never really think it's going to happen.
Right.
Until it does. And now I want another one. Like, I'm like, I want to win the Harris J. I want to get back to back. Like, I think only one guy's ever gone back to back in opens. And, you know, it seems outlandish, but once I got it done, I'm like, that's what it takes. And like, you know, you kind of know how to do it.
Yeah. It's got to be a huge, well, I don't want to say relief, just, you know, a huge achievement, obviously. But at the same time, you're like, man, okay, I thought I could do this when I started fishing the opens in 2021, but you're not sure till you get there. And you've had a lot of success recently, cashed a lot of checks, been right around that area you need to be for things to go right. Man, they did right there on Lake of the Ozarks. So very cool, dude. Congratulations again. I know you had
Thank
a
you.
good
Yeah.
event. Absolutely. We're going to talk a little bit about, how this kind of came together for you, concentrating on this fall transition, kind of this summer to fall. You had a good event at stop number 7 on the Bassmaster Opens EQ
Yeah.
series at Watts Bar. You cashed a solid check on a fishery that wasn't easy, but had really got you
No.
kind of in tune to this fall thing that happens, right? This fall
Yeah.
thing that happens. Were there any keys that you picked up at Watts Bar? Because these were back-to-back events for listeners that don't know. They went straight from Watts Bar to Lake of the Ozarks. And was there any keys, Kyle, that you were able to pick up through that fishing time at Watts Bar that you were able to kind of set into motion as soon as you started practicing there at Lake of the Ozarks?
Yeah, I mean, Watts Bar, it's a lake that's a grind. Like that lake, you don't go out there and expect to catch unless you're Tyler Williams. You don't go out there and expect to catch 20 keepers. The size limit, it's 15-inch minimum and 18 on smallmouth. So like the tournament, I knew it was going to be like a tough deal, right? But no, I mean, I just focused on grass in main lake grass was kind of the deal there. Like main lake to kind of just leading back into the pockets. There's a lot of pockets on that lake. If you could find grass, like main lake kind of close to those pockets. So like when the pocket would, the mouth of the pocket right here, those corners there, they had some nice grass around them. If you could find grass, and then the sneakier grass would be like, kind of a little bit further down, like sort of near the mouth of the creeks, but not like connected to it. So, it'd be a little harder to find. You could find that stuff. There was quality keepers in that grass. And, obviously we were in fall, but it was still hot. It was very hot. We really didn't get that many cold nights. But, it sort of shows how these fish are transitioning from sort of main lake, summertime deal, out on the ledge, to, starting to spread out, sort of move like towards the back of the pockets, get to where the bait is, and that being said, it sort of transitioned well into Ozarks, because, it was sort of the same deal. Like they were sort of at the mouth. I felt like the mouth of, Lake of the Ozarks has a million different coves, docks, but there's a lot of little coves and inlets, right? And so, I spread myself out a lot in practice, just trying to see all the water. And, day one, I was able to catch that almost 20-pound bag, sort of main lake, right? Or main, that I went up towards the river. So like main river, lake, whatever you want to call it. But there were some smaller pockets, right? So I think the big ones were staging, getting ready to move up shallow, but they were still kind of on that drop. It was pretty significant drop off under these docks that I was catching them on. Okay. And then you sort of saw it, right? So day two, and it was getting colder all week. Now there's kind of a heat, it's pretty hot down there for this Toyota series, but I got colder and I went up to that same spot on day two and nowhere to be found. Those fish, they were gone. So, I had probably 2 fish at noon and I ran to the middle section of a pocket, right, that I had found some brush piles in, and there was one little hard spot. And these fish were stacked up in it. I caught like 15 and a half pound bag on day two. I caught it all on one spot. And there was tons of bait back there, not all the way in the back of a pocket, but sort of halfway. They were, you could almost see how they were moving, like starting to get up into the backs of the pockets, chasing that bait. It's a good sort of Watts Bar was I was catching them outside the pockets, right? And then like right on the leading edge. And I was still doing the same thing on day one, but then day two, I had to, get further back into some of the really good pockets that I found in practice to sort of salvage that day 2 day. And then day 3 was just, junk fishing around, fishing new water, areas that I had seen, but really hadn't fished, but just figured there'd be big ones there. And, I'll say this, Kurt, I don't think I caught a big one, like 1/4 in the back of any pocket on any of the days. All my biggest bass, like the 4+, I caught a 5-6 on first day. They were all in brush piles or some piece of structure sort of like on main lake. And I think that's because those fish are a little bit later to the party of moving back and chasing the bait toward back of the coves. But the bait was there. Like they were getting ready to do it.
Right. Well, you see that. Do you feel like, from a strategy standpoint, that was something you just leaned on because you saw better fish in that zone in practice? Or was that just where you were getting the most bites in general? Or was it that you were
main lake stuff?
Yes.
That's where the better bites. I was getting better bites main lake. Back of the pockets, I could get bit by a ton of fish, like 12 to 13 inches, and it was 15-inch at Lake of the Ozarks as well. Right. So it was the same size limit as Watts Bar, and I knew I could get a lot of bites. I thought I could catch 10, 12 pounds potentially, but you got to weed through a lot of fish to get that. I thought I needed probably 20 bites, 25 bites to catch 15 inches.
That's a lot. That's a lot of bites.
Right. It's a lot of bites on any fishery with that many guys out there. I mean, we had Toyota Series guys practicing. We had that BFL Super Tournament during our practice. We had, I mean, it was that, and that boat traffic, it was crazy there. But yeah, no, I really didn't have a good practice, but I got good bites on main lake docks, a little bit of deeper water, not all the way in the back of the coast. So I just kind of took that pattern, and on day 1, I fished new water, but it was in the same general region, but I knew that that's where they were. Main lake, the big ones were main lake, because I only caught 6 fish on the first day, but every one of them was a 3.5 or better big, Well,
that's the key deal, man, for sure. That's how you win bass tournaments.
It really is.
What is it that you're looking for that, when you left Watts Bar and launched the boat at Lake of the Ozarks, did it feel similar? Did it feel like the fish were kind of in a similar situation?
Oh, yeah, no, it felt like a similar situation. The lakes feel completely different.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, of course. Like Ozarks is overwhelming. So it felt similar. I thought that, they would be a little bit deeper than Watts Bar, because Ozarks is it just sets up that way, especially down by the dam, clearer water. Watts Bar wasn't very clear unless you got in the back of the grass. I saw the tail end of the show you had prior, and he's right. Like the clear grass was the deal, but other than that, Watts Bar was pretty dirty. So I figured people were going to catch some fish deep, just because it's easier for them to set up, and it's easier for you to catch them in that clearer water. But no, I mean, I felt like there would be some doing the same thing, but I kind of approached it. Fall is one of those weird times where you can kind of pick your poison, right? Like if you dedicate time to finding a bite that you want to be on in the fall, majority of the time you can have some success doing it, whether that's offshore, pitching docks, wood, structure offshore, like, standing timber, whatever it may be. Sure. They're kind of spread out, right? And, I wanted to keep a jig in my hand, and the jig's just such a versatile bait. Like you can pretty much, I don't know if they watched me on FS1, I was reeling it in different ways. I was doing all kinds of stuff with it to get them to bite. But yeah, I think I felt like Ozarks kind of lent to more, you could do kind of a lot of things there and have success. Like I truly didn't think one guy was going to win it doing one thing,
Yeah. When you launch your boat in the fall, Kyle, what are you looking for that's going to trigger you to lead you a direction? Like what is it? Water temperature? Is it what you're seeing on your graphs? Your live scope, where the bait's located. What are some of the things that really make you trigger to start your strategy of process to break down the lake?
Yeah, good question. I look for, if I can find areas that have more elongated, flat areas, right? Like not too much of a drop off. Like when I launched at Ozarks, the creek we went out of, PB2, I forget the name of the creek. It's that bigger arm with less docks. That creek had a lot more, it had a lot more flat contours, right? So it's an easy feeding area out there. And, there's a lot of different points, a lot of different coves. I felt like there was a lot of structure, a lot of brush piles. So I look for that like flatter contour lines, because a lot of times there's a ton of structure out there for them to be able to just hang out on, feed on. And then most of the time, if there's a lot more like, like points and like flatter points, then there's going to be coves that they can push that bait back into and sort of get, feed really. So that's one thing. I definitely look at the structure is the biggest thing, right? Like, and the reason I say like a flatter point or like more, because it's just different, right? Like I feel like I can get out there, graph it, and a lot of guys look for it, but like I feel like I can sort of pick an area of if I choose an area of the lake that's flat, I feel like I can break it down and see what's going on quicker, right? Because I can fish in 30, I can fish in 15, I can fish in 10, I can fish in 1, and sort of gauge what's happening, and then I go from there. Rather than,
great point.
You know what I mean? Rather than like pushing up on the bank and then, oh, boom, you're out in 60 foot of water if you take a cast out to the left.
Like they're not going to be anywhere in between, or you wouldn't be able to see them. Yeah.
Right.
That's a great tip, man. It kind of gives you a lot more diversity in areas and depth zones and potential shallow versus deep cover, and like you mentioned, even structure. The drop off of the point where it goes down. Man, that's I've never heard somebody break it down like that, because really, it wasn't for you water temperature. It wasn't bait popping, and you would see those things obviously, but the first thing you're going to key on is looking at as much style of water in a small area is essentially what you said. That's pretty freaking profound. I think that's a great tip, man. What type of cover are you trying to establish that you feel like is highest percentage in a seasonal behavior pattern? Because we're really looking at, I feel like, 3 seasonal behavior patterns that you're going to find here, like you did at Lake of the Ozarks and Watts Bar in mid-September. Then once you get into October, you kind of get that early fall. And then, man, when it really starts to cool down, for me, I start looking at that water temperature starts creeping into them low 60s and high 50s. Man, it seems like that just makes fish bite everywhere because they're in that fall feed mode before it gets cold. So when you're looking at those different seasonal patterns, do you think there's a specific type of cover that they get on better or worse through that process?
That's a good question. I don't really think so. Again, I think it's about the air. That is when I really think the area of the lake is key. I try in that situation to cover as much water as I can to sort of figure out, or research, Google Earth, like all the things we have as anglers at our fingertips, like figure out where the strongest, largest population of fish is.
Right.
Because I don't think it matters too much as long as you're in the right zone or area. I mean, I have just as much confidence in the fall pitching a dock as I do, live scope in a brush pile. Right. I mean, it's really, it's about the area. Like, I remember at Hartwell last year, I had a 41st or 42nd. I didn't cut a check, but it was still a good finish. Yeah. I basically stayed in a 250 yard, maybe 300 yard stretch the whole tournament, aside from running up a river to check to see if I could get some big largemouth. I stayed in one area, and man, there were fish everywhere, absolutely everywhere. And a lot of them weren't even on structure. They were just roaming in the sand, and from a foot out to 15, caught a bunch of good ones on live scope. Couple I caught on a pop-R that I remember David Gaston, he top 10 there on a pop-R that tournament at Hartwell. So like I said, in the fall, you can kind of pick your poison, but I think the area of the lake is super key.
Okay.
Or one section that you can kind of, like I said, zone in on. But
for listeners, break that down. You say an area of lake. I tend to break an area of lake into 3 sections, right? You got river, mid, down. Are you kind of the same process?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and that's a good, and I guess that was pretty general what I was saying. Like, so say you have a lake that's river, mid, down, right?
Right.
So maybe you check the river a day, you check down today, and then you check mid, and you sort of based on what you've sort of figured out on those 3 days. And this is assuming there's 5 days of practice. Other times you'd have to, do it. You have to change your whole game plan, but you can, and that's based off history, Google Earth, all that stuff. But you can then hone in sections within that section, like, because you've already had 3 days of practice. Say the river, that shallow bite was on fire, and then you also find a really good shallow bite mid-lake. Well, then you can say, okay, let's work on 10-foot or less and try to find brush piles in 10-foot or less, or wood, like, because in the fall you can a lot of times figure out what they're on as far as cover goes pretty quickly. Right. Like, you can flip 25 laydowns. If you get 3 bites, you're going to look for more laydowns, right? And if you fish 10 brush piles and you don't get a bite, you're not going to fish brush piles necessarily. So I think in the fall it's totally hit or miss. Like, I think day to day they can sit on different stuff, and that's what was the key with Ozarks. Like, I think people in that tournament got really set on having a really good Clyde bite or a specific type of structure, whereas I just found 3 good zones and I just fished. And then during the day, I kind of let them tell me what they were doing. And that feels weird. And I felt really uncomfortable with it, but it works.
You won.
Yeah.
You won.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's break down some docks, bro. I know that there's a lot of anglers out there. You talked about deep docks there like the Ozarks and having some success there. A lot of people look at a dock lake and just they see the same thing visually every time they look at a dock. What are some of the things that you visually look at that maybe some other people aren't seeing? Number one, we already heard you say depth, can be very important.
Big deal. Yeah.
What are some other tidbits on dock fishing that we can help folks catch some more fish that you feel like will dial them into getting some more bites in that type of cover?
Totally. So that's a really good question. I've got a really good answer because I fish a lot of docks. Now, not a lot of docks like the Ozarks. That's something special, that place. Like, dude, if anyone's listening, do yourself a favor, go on a Google Earth, type in Lake of the Ozarks, and go tell me which dock you'd start on. Okay.
Right. There's a million docks.
Oh my gosh. It's a million.
In 10 million feet. There's a dock every 10 feet in the entire lake, right?
Oh my God. It's incredible. So first things first is the dock doesn't matter as much. Like you said, you have shallower docks, you have deeper docks. That's 1. 2 is what's around the docks, right? Like brush piles, the concrete cylinders where the cables are attached to that come down off the docks. What depth of water are those in, right? Like if 15 foot seemed to be like a really good number this past week, like if I saw cables coming down, because those fish at Ozarks were suspended on the cables, even in like 60 foot of water, they would suspend on the cables and chase bait as it came by. So what's around the dock is really crucial. What's behind the dock. Like, a lot of people don't take the time to zigzag and go, because these docks come out really far. Right. So getting in behind the docks and, there's like a black, a black sort of like floater back there, right. And that the sun heats that up, and when it gets really cold, they can, they suspend up under it. Like, there's so many little things that you have to look for. And sort of the way I go about it a lot of the times is I'll idle with my live scope down. So I'll be sitting and my trolling motor will be down in the water, and I point my trolling motor at the docks because you can't even see the brush on your side imaging because there's so much stuff down there.
Right.
And I just idle and look at my live scope, and it's just pointing, and there's brush, look at that cable. So, and then once you do sort of figure out, I idle for a good chunk of time, fish some docks on points, fish some docks in Maxa Coves, fish some docks halfway back in the cove, fish some just, shallow docks, deep docks, all, and stay on one stretch though, right? So don't like spread yourself too thin. If you fish a whole bunch of different docks and sort of like really fish them though, like it's not one of those easy deals where you can just flip in, bounce, bite, right? You got to play with your jig or whatever you're flipping, drop shot, could be anything, and sort of figure out how they want it. Like on day one, they literally would eat it before it hit the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
And day two, I couldn't even buy a bite like that. I had to swim it back. So like there's all types of things, but I mean, I guess that's long-winded way of saying.
No, that's great. That's a lot of great points, man. There's so many things there that an angler can look back on and rewind that and make a checklist, because those are all things that make a huge difference. Docks to me are the greatest cover for bass on a lake. At the same time, they're some of the most difficult for an angler to break down.
Totally.
Not only skill wise, being able to get it back into some of these areas, but also dissecting, okay, was it just this pocket? Was it main lake? There's so many different variables, just like you went through. So those are all great checklists for guys to look through. How about baits? We've talked a lot about style of cover, your success there on Lake of the Ozarks. You talked about a jig and doing some erratic action to get some of the fish to react and bite. You talked about a drop shot, of course. But in fall fishing, if you had 5 baits, what would they be and where would you throw them first?
Okay, that's a good question. Well, in the fall, first things first, I would have a chatterbait because I can cover a lot of water and I can see a lot of fish with it, depending on the water clarity. I think another phenomenal is a top. You have to have a top water, because the nice thing about a top water, like a buzzbait or a plopper, you can easily take the hooks off and see the strikes. So you can be like, okay, I got bit here, I got bit there, I got bit there. And you can kind of like visualize almost how big that fish is. Sometimes that can be hard, but I think covering water in the fall is a big deal. So like, a buzz bait, a top water, a chatterbait. One thing I don't think I'll ever not have on the deck of my boat is a drop shot. And I use the Missile Baits Magic Worm. That thing is deadly. Like that. And I'm dead serious, dude. I've in the past, so all my fish I caught at Toledo Bend, 13th place finish, was on that. Every fish I caught at Bugs Island was on that. Every fish I caught in the, what was the last one?
Watts.
No, before that was St. Lawrence. Before St. Lawrence, Oklahoma. Lake Eufaula. Every fish I weighed was on it. So a drop shot, I just think, because sometimes the big ones can be tricky to get to bite. And I think being able to shake a worm, like a longer drop shot and present it on live scope's the X factor here. Like having that's a huge deal. It is crucial. So buzz bait, top water, like a chatterbait. So a submerged bait that you can kind of burn water with. The drop shot, and then the jig. A jig's year round for me, but that bait is incredible because you can throw a 1/4 ounce swim jig. You don't even need to throw a swim jig. You can throw a 1/4 ounce jig, 3/8, half, 3/4, and it can cover absolutely all the water you need to cover with. If I could only have one bait all year round, it would be a jig. I love the jig so much. There's so many ways that you work it. You can burn it back, and it's similar to a chatterbait. It doesn't throw off as much vibration, obviously, but it still has the same like covering water effect and same profile. So Yeah, the jig's just crucial. That's 4. And then I think for the 5th, it would have to be probably some sort of, like crankbait or spinner bait, something that really does a good job, maybe a swim bait of imitating a bait fish, but again, a moving bait.
Right.
I think, and a lot of the times, Kurt, I'll use a lot of moving baits in practice when I'm trying to find water. That's a huge deal for me. Like, I'm not necessarily saying I'm going to win the tournament on a spinner bait, a chatter bait, a buzz bait, but I'm going to find really good areas on it,
Yeah.
Because if you get 5 bites in a cove, it's safe to assume that there's some fish back there, whether they're big or not.
There's a lot more bites. Yeah.
Yeah, whether they're big or not, you can figure that out, when you come back through the next day and check all the areas. You've say you burn through 10 areas with a top water and you have 10 areas you want to go check. You can be more efficient going back through, only hitting those areas with a jig or something that you want to slow down with and see what the potential is.
Great tip. All right, man. Man, this has been such a great interview breaking down this fall fishing, but I want to talk a little bit about your success in the opens. You're a New Yorker, and so how has the adjustment been? You went full force into this in 2001. That was kind of the year you went, I'm fishing it all. And you fished it all in 21, you fished it all in 22, and now you fished it all in 23. You got one event left. And what has it been that has given you the consistency of success, especially over these last 18 months, that is the secret sauce to your success?
Yeah. I know it's a hot topic right now. I don't know if you watched Treycast, that podcast I was on with Randy Blockhead. I know live scope's a hot topic, but
sure.
Live scope and learning to be better with your electronics is something that is crucial all times of the year, right?
Yep.
In 2021, that was the first year I had a mentor, Paul Pagnato. He introduced me to Gerald Swindle and John Cruz, a bunch of Chad Morgan Taylor, a ton of the top guys that know the sport, the industry, and that are very successful in the sport of bass fishing. And that was the first year that I even really started to begin to get dialed with my electronics, learning from these guys. I marshaled all the Elite Series events, and I was fortunate to have my mentor, pay for it, because that was impossible at the time for me.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And that I just really learned that, wow, you have to be good with your electronics, because you're just not going to compete if you're not. I mean, maybe you are if you're a John Cox, but how many times do those guys come around, so good at shallow water fishing that they just can rely on it all the time.
Yes.
And 2021, I fished the Central Division. I did the rest as a co in the opens as well as marshaled. But then I got my butt beat bad. I had 160th place finish. It was the first time. I was all jacked up. I'm a pretty pumped up dude. And 2022, I really was, getting pretty good with live scope, pretty good with side imaging. I'm not as good as some of the guys on the opens, but that's when it all sort of started to click. And I think that's when I was like, okay, if I can mix my shallow water New York style of fishing, because that's what I grew up on. I didn't grow up smallmouth fishing. That's not I grew up on the Finger Lakes, and there's really good smallmouth fishing, but a lot of it was, largemouth fishing. I mean, I had a tiny little tracker. I went around, flip docks, grass, some offshore stuff, but not much. And I mixed that with my newfound knowledge and excitement with electronics. And I think having those two skills in the opens is crucial, because as much as everyone thinks that it's all live scope all the time, you got to be able to catch them shallow, because sometimes that deep bite is non-existent, and you need to do well. If you want to make the elites, if you want to perform at a high level, you can't have all your eggs in one basket. It just doesn't work like that.
Right.
But I think to answer
those are the keys. Yeah. That was a great progression. Well, man, you've had such great success in the Open ZQ qualifiers this past year. Right now, you're sitting in 6th place.
Yeah.
One event to go down at Harris Chain.
Yeah.
Man, where, what's going through your mind? Like where you, and the new schedule just popped out. Man, I'm going to say it right here. I feel sorry for the guys fishing all 9 next year. That travel schedule is
Brutal.
rough.
Brutal. I looked at it. I was like, holy smokes. It'd be nice to top 50 the Harris Chain. And I'm shooting for a top 10 and even a win, but I would like to make the elites this year. That's for sure.
Yeah. What are you looking for down there at Harris Chain? What do you think is going to be kind of the thought process as you enter this? And if you don't want to talk too much about the fishing, what about the mental attitude and that aspect of what's going to be going on?
Totally.
Fall in Florida, especially in October, September's rough in Florida. I mean, it's still freaking summer, but by the time October, you guys are going to be fishing this derby just before the middle of October. Probably going to be some cool down, but what are you looking for as an angler to kind of capitalize on to seal the deal for your 2024 Elite Series bid?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think truly, I think it can be one shallow or deep. I think shell will play a big factor. Brush will play a big factor. The grass will play a big factor. I think this time of year, if you can get in some really good grass, you can get right in a hurry in Florida. And a lot of times it's hard to come by because, the FWC or whoever it is that sprays these lakes and just nukes
you think you got a great 100 acres and all of a sudden 2 days later is brown.
Yeah, it can get rough. And I've heard they've been doing a lot of spraying to a lot of the lakes. So obviously, we can't get on there until not this Saturday, but next Saturday.
So pre-practice is over. You can't practice anymore prior to the tournament. You get 5 days of practice, right?
Yep. 4.5 days. And so, I think it's going to be crucial mentally to not try to play it too safe. I think a lot of guys are going to, especially the ones in the top 10 that, there are a couple guys that are sealed, right? Like JT.
Yeah, I think there's 3 guys that are sealed. Yeah,
pretty much.
I think they don't even have to catch a bass.
I think John Garrett. No, so JT is the only one that doesn't have to catch a bass, right? Okay. John Garrett has to catch a bass.
Okay.
Because he needs to get like 10 points in order to. So they're basically sealed, right? But some of the guys like in my position, you got to be careful not to play it too safe, and you can get burned doing that. I mean, you can get burned trying to go for the win too, but there's a fine line between playing it safe and like trying to go for
do well.
To do well. And so I'm going to be cautious of that. I think I'm definitely going to be cautious of locking. I think locking can sometimes really hurt you in Florida, being that there's only some boats like to get to a Popka. I think it's like a 3-boat lock. So if 20 guys go and you're the last one there, you're in trouble. And so that's on my mind. And then I think there's a lot of hype. Obviously, I just won this past event, and like there's been a lot of hype, like Bassmaster Classic. You're sitting really good. You just need X, Y, or Z. And my buddies are like, "Oh my God, I'm gonna come down to Florida. We can party once you make the elites." It's like, dude, I got a lot of work to do before I make the elites. Like this tournament is just as important as the first one. It really is the same. All of them are the exact same. So I'm just going to go into it, stay calm. I'm going to do just like what I did at Ozarks. Ozarks was just as important, if not more important. Like they're all, you just got to go.
Ozarks put you in the position you're in right now, essentially.
Right. Exactly. So I just want to go in cool, level-headed. That's one thing that I've had this year that I haven't had in years past. Like even 2022 at the Red River, I should have caught him there. I mean, it wasn't my fault as a fisherman. It was my fault because I was mentally, I was not at the level I needed to be at mentally in fishing to get it done, because I was rattled. I
hadn't experienced it yet.
Ronnie Moore after the Chesapeake was talking about, oh, he just needs this, and I spun myself out, and that's why I didn't do well. So I think this year I've been way better about
That's great.
staying mentally sharp, which is key.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, we wish you the best of luck down there, man. It's been a fun time having you right here on Bass Edge Radio. Any final thoughts for the listeners that you would like to share with them before we kind of shut down the interview here?
Yeah, no, I think I just want to say that I truly believe, as cutthroat and as intimidating this sport can be, I think there are a lot of people out there that can do this, like that can fish for a living, or at least try, give it a shot. Like, I really was close to not doing it. And whether you have to work really hard for, companies in the industry in order to allow you to do it, or you have to, have a regular 9 to 5, like, I think it's very possible. Don't get discouraged by people that say that you need to be really wealthy or you need all these things. I think if you put your mind to it, I truly believe this industry, it's going to give you the opportunity to be successful. So just remember that, and don't get discouraged by the hate.
That's great. Great tip, man. Great thought process. I really like that. I will say, I've said this to a lot of anglers that are on the cusp of, breaking through the opens and getting to the Elite Series. I always talk to them, and they think once they get through the opens, like, they can take a deep breath. The work is just beginning.
Yeah,
work is just beginning.
Yeah.
It's a great process. It's fun to watch. I really enjoy you sharing your fishing knowledge with everybody here at Bass Edge Radio, as well as just, your thought process and how you break things down, and getting to know Kyle Patrick in this episode has been a lot of fun, man. So I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Garrett. Appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Well, that is Kyle Patrick. We are going to take our last break here. We're going to do a little breakdown of the show. We're going to watch Kyle at Harris Chain before the next episode. We're going to talk to it about that next episode. But before we get there, we're going to break down the events that are coming up. Y'all stay tuned. Bass Edge Radio will be back right after this.
Nitro, a rush of tournament adrenaline. Nitro, the choice of champion, where performance meets play. Nitro, a big water beast, a pure fishing machine. Nitro, release the champion within.
Nobody wants to run out of power when they're on the water. There is a better way. Introducing the Charge Marine Power Management Station from PowerPole that does the work of 3 devices: a traditional battery charger, a charge on the run, and an emergency start system. PowerPole Charge.
Hey, here we are. Welcome back, Bass Edge Radio. Man, what a great interview with Kyle Patrick, Bassmaster Opens EQ angler and recent champion at Lake of the Ozarks. Lots of fun to hear his take, what he's got going on. Let's break down both interviews real quick. Again, we came back with the showcase segment in this episode. We had on Travis Burns, the champion at the Brandon Belt Fishing Show Series Championship down there on Choke Canyon. Man, Travis had a great perspective on how he had a vision of how this tournament was going to go for him. Thought he was going to catch him deep offshore, early September in Texas. It's still summertime. There isn't a whole lot of fall cool down that time of year, especially this year with temperatures being in the 100s almost all summer long. But man, the deep bite just wasn't working, and he kind of touched on a little shallow deal, tried to push the deep bite. Boom, he adjusted. Him and his buddy Kenny jacked a big bag, high mid-20s on that first day of the tournament, which really kind of locked it in. They had a decent bag, 16 pounds day 2, then wrapped it up with 12 pounds the last day to win 100,000, almost, Travis said, about 120K once all the contingencies were over with. But man, just the ability to stop what you're doing if it's not working. I mean, that's a huge piece. A lot of anglers would just keep running that same program or same pattern and come back to the dock and just say, well, it didn't work. And he was able, and Kenny were able to make that adjustment, get a big bag, then go on and follow through with that adjustment that they made to go ahead and win that tournament. So the tip there, don't be afraid to change. It seems easy. To just change through a tournament day. But it's not that easy. And you got to change pretty quickly, because once you get on the pattern that is working, you got to have time to catch them. So big shout out there. That was a great interview with Travis. He also gave us some tips on what he believes is going to be going down in the latter parts of in the middle part of October, and then as the month progresses, shad moving into the backs of the creeks, likes to downsize. I also think that's a huge key to success this time of year. Downsizing your bait, get more bites. The bait fish are pretty small. Most of the fish that spawned in May and June and early July, that's what these bass are feeding on. So they're small bait fish, downsized. You're going to get a lot more bites once you secure that limit, which can be tough sometimes in the fall. Then you can try to work to upgrade on some of those bigger bass, either working through those that Travis recommended or maybe picking up a big bait as he suggested as well. So great stuff from Travis Burns. Then how about it with Kyle Patrick, man? Just kind of breaking down the thought process from Watts Bar and then entering into Lake of the Ozarks. And I love how he picks. I don't know that I've ever heard this before on dissecting a lake or an area, really a territory of a lake. And he likes to get on a big, shallow, like a flat point, where he's going to have some deep water around, shallow water cover around, maybe some brush piles, but that he's going to be able to dissect this flat point area that has all these depth zones within it, shallow to deep, maybe some different variables in cover as well, and really find out what he feels like is the best target for the fish, whether he sees bait or whether he catches a couple fish. Then he can start trying to duplicate that throughout that zone of the lake. So man, that was a great tip from Kyle Patrick. I would definitely think that we should all put that in our repertoire to break down a lake that we haven't seen so much. And that was Kyle's first time at Lake the Ozarks. He even mentioned, like, man, didn't expect it, had no idea it was even remotely possible the win would be coming. It just it worked out that way. And he is a Bassmaster Open champion and a 2024 Classic qualifier. So big shout out to Kyle. Let's talk about a couple of events that are coming up soon. We talked to Kyle, obviously, about the Bassmaster Open finale that's going to be happening on the Harris Chain Lakes. That is October 12th through 14th. So we will be breaking that down here on the next episode of Bass Edge Radio, October 15. And we'll also be talking about who qualified for the Elite Series and all that kind of good stuff. Going on right now, though, today is the final day of the Toyota Series on Lake of the Ozarks. So once you listen to Bass Edge Radio, go check it out and now with success for each of us anglers, and we can learn from these so much. And that the championship qualifiers there on Table Rock Lake, that is going to be going down November 2 through 4. Top 5 anglers from all 5 divisions in that Toyota Series plus the wildcard division. So finally see, really, I think that's probably one of the last big events of the year. It's gonna kind of culminate the 2023 bass fishing. I do want to mention too, right now going on is the Bassmaster Classic College bracket. They still have a couple of events or you know, I guess brackets to go through to get that championship. So on. Right now, the Bassmaster College Classic. Big shout out. Thank you, Travis Byrne. Obviously, a big shout out to Kyle Patrick for being a part of this episode of Bass Edge Radio. Everybody out here, be sure to check back with us October 15th for the next episode. Hit that like, hit that subscribe button. Leave a comment as well. Adios, everybody. We're out of here. Bass Edge Radio. We'll see ya next time. Bye-bye.